Okay, so this is a video about the amplifier setup and sort of check over. So the first thing we're going to want to do is actually make sure before we plug anything in that the equipment is safe to use. And to do this, if I get the power supply, in this case, because for this particular amp it may look a little bit like a laptop charger, just need to make sure if I unplug this kettle lead or IEC, let's just check over this cable, make sure the cable doesn't actually have any obvious breakages in it or any sort of tears in the cabling. Going through, I can't see anything wrong with the actual cabling itself. Of course, obviously there's a fuse in the plug, but you won't know if that's good or not until you actually plug it in and try and turn it on. Let's check the ends of the connectors here, make sure that all three, so the neutral, earth and live prongs, are actually not bent or broken or damaged in any way. Nope, can't see anything wrong with that. Checking everything there, so I can't see any obvious damage to that cable at all. So it's the same thing with this power supply, making sure each of the three prongs aren't bent or broken or half out or anything like that. Again, making sure on this particular type of plug that this connector here isn't like loose or broken off, and it feels good to me. And now, because this is a thin cable, if I unplug this from the back, we can see here that you want to make sure that again there's no just breakages in this cable. Cable, you can see, is a little bit bent, but that's, you know, no damage to it at all. There's no breakages in it. It doesn't feel like it's broken or twisted in any way. And of course the obvious thing is, once I've plugged this back in, is to actually have a look on the amp itself. So I can see a power switch there that feels like it's not gonna go anywhere. Just make sure none of these pots are actually gonna be hanging out or anything like that. Just look inside, because this is a valve amp as well, so make sure that the valve isn't actually broken. Make sure the glass casing is okay and that the actual electronics inside the valve are not broken anyway. I can't see any breakages there at all. Again, on the back, make sure this power connector isn't broken, which it looks fine to me. Again, the jack socket there, that looks perfectly fine to me. I can't see anything wrong with that, so I'll go ahead and plug it in. Right, okay, so now that I've plugged it in and the actual plug is turned on, we need to go ahead and make sure the equipment is actually functional. So to do that, the first thing would be obviously to turn the amp on, and if it turns on, we know this amp is functional. Okay, so it's turned on, so we know that power's getting into the amp, the fuse is okay in that plug. Again, like I said, there's no damage to the plug here, and that it safely is delivering the power. You see the amp is actually on and powering, which is functioning. If I can look at the valve, I can see that it's hard to see in the day. Oh yeah, I can see at the back that the valve is glowing. So again, that tells us the valve is working and that power is getting to everything. So the next thing we need to do to test out the amp is obviously plug it in and use the amp. Okay, so with the guitar, get one jack cable, plug it into the input socket, making sure your volume is turned down so you don't get any nasty pops through that could damage your speakers, and then plug the other end in to the guitar like that. And of course, make sure the volume's up on the guitar, and then slowly increase the volume, as we can see. That amp is clearly on and it's clearly working okay. What we can do is, like I said with the guitar videos, we can just move the pots around to make sure they're not making any weird noises and they're doing their job. Just the gain. Yep, so that gain's not working okay. Look at the tone. So that's all the way over, which is treble. And then all the way over should be bass. Yep. Mid. that's all working fine. And then obviously volume. I'm not going to pump out too loud because this is an extremely loud amp, but yeah, so that amp is now functioning and working okay. So the next thing we need to do is actually apply some settings to this amp or particular sound we want. I'm going to go for sort of a classic rock sound. That's my sort of preferred type of tone. So to do that, what we're going to want is we're going to want the mid and treble to be higher than the bass. So on this particular amp, I've only got one tone control, which, as I said earlier, all the way over to the left is bass, all the way over to the right is all your treble frequencies, and of course in the middle is obviously your middle, and then from there you can do a little sort of EQ mix there. So if I want the treble and mid to be higher than the bass, I think what I'm going to do is have it what I usually set on, which is about 1 or 2 o'clock on the tone. Let's try it at 1 o'clock first, and that should give us a slightly more dominant higher frequencies than the lower frequencies. Now obviously listening it through this microphone and your speakers is probably not doing the sound justice in any way, because it's going to be slightly different than what I'm hearing. But hopefully you can hear that there's more treble there than bass. So now next thing we need to do is set up the gain. Of course, classic rock doesn't have a hugely heavy gain sound. So on this particular amp, if I was put because this doesn't have a clean channel, if I put the gain all the way over to the left, it gets very, very quiet and it actually becomes a clean. So I think for classic rock, if I go to about 11 o'clock first, let's try that. Getting there, let's try 12 o'clock. Of course the guitar's a bit out of tune. Just a tad, and I'm not in the right standard tuning either. But that's I think that's sort of more classic rock tonic. We could go 1 higher if we wanted to, but I think that's sort of the max we would go for classic rock. But on this particular amp, 12 o'clock is sort of your classic rock type gain sound. So that has been the setup of the amplifier, so connecting the guitar, making sure it's safe to use, making sure it actually works and is functional, and then setting it up to be a classic rock type sound.